A cold breeze swept through the bustling city streets as neon signs flickered above. It was another ordinary night for Arif, a hard-working taxi driver navigating through the endless sea of headlights. With one hand on the steering wheel and the other adjusting the radio, he sighed deeply, exhaustion settling into his bones. For the past 10 years, Arif had driven the same routes, picked up countless passengers, and heard more life stories than he could count. Yet, his own story remained painfully unchanged. Long hours, meager earnings, and a pile of unpaid bills waiting for him at home. Maybe tonight will be different, he muttered under his breath, his eyes scanning the road for his next fare. A sharp ding from his phone signaled a new ride request. He glanced at the screen, a pickup from one of the city's most expensive hotels. Instinctively, Arif straightened his posture. Passengers from such locations usually meant generous tips, and tonight, he could use every extra rupee he could get. Arriving at the hotel entrance, he saw a well-dressed man standing under the golden glow of the chandelier-lit lobby. His tailored suit, polished shoes, and the way he carried himself screamed wealth. But there was something else about him, an air of quiet contemplation, as if he carried a burden no amount of money could erase. The man slid into the back seat without a word, his expression unreadable. "Where to, sir?" Arif asked, breaking the silence. The man hesitated before answering, as if debating something in his mind. Finally, he spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Drive. I'll tell you when to stop." It was an unusual request, but Arif had seen stranger things in his years behind the wheel. Without another word, he pulled away from the curb and merged into the city's restless traffic, unaware that this ride was about to change his life forever. Arif stole a glance at his passenger through the rearview mirror. The man sat with an air of quiet authority, gazing out the window as if lost in thought. His face was sharp, chiseled, yet weary, like someone who had seen too much of the world and carried its weight on his shoulders. Arif cleared his throat. "Long night, sir?" he asked, attempting to break the silence. The man barely reacted. After a pause, he spoke, his voice deep yet distant. "You could say that." Arif nodded and focused on the road, but curiosity gnawed at him. He had driven countless wealthy clients before, businessmen who barked orders into their phones, socialites who gossiped loudly, and tourists eager to explore the city. But this man was different, reserved, almost melancholic. As they wove through the traffic, Arif couldn't help but think of his own struggles. Every day was a battle to make ends meet. His wife, Sadia, worked tirelessly as a seamstress, yet their combined income barely covered rent, school fees for their 2 children, and the endless list of household expenses. Then there was his mother. Her health had been declining, and the cost of medication kept increasing. He had promised her the best care he could afford, but affordability was a cruel joke. Arif sighed, gripping the steering wheel tighter. If only luck could favor him just once. The man's voice cut through his thoughts. "Do you always work this late?" Arif glanced at the mirror, slightly surprised. He hadn't expected the passenger to start a conversation. "Every night, sir. Got a family to feed," he said, forcing a smile. The man nodded slowly, as if processing his words. He leaned back against the seat, exhaling deeply. "And if money weren't an issue, would you still do this?" Arif chuckled. "I wish I could say I love driving this taxi, but no, sir. If I had money, I'd spend time with my family. Maybe even start a small business." A flicker of something unreadable passed across the man's face, but he said nothing. The city lights flashed past as they drove in silence. Suddenly, the man leaned forward slightly. "Take me to the Old Market Street," he instructed. Arif hesitated. The Old Market was not a typical destination for someone of this man's status. It was a place of bustling vendors, struggling shopkeepers, and narrow alleyways, far from the luxury hotels and high-rise offices he seemed accustomed to. "Are you sure, sir?" Arif asked, his brow furrowed. The man met his gaze in the mirror, his eyes unwavering. "Yes." Arif turned the wheel, guiding the taxi toward the older part of town, where the streets grew narrower and the buildings stood weathered with time. His curiosity deepened. Who was this man, and why did he want to go there? The road to the Old Market was a sharp contrast to the city's sleek avenues. Streetlights flickered, casting long shadows on the cracked pavement. Small tea stalls and fruit vendors lined the sidewalks, their voices carrying through the humid night air. Arif slowed the taxi as they approached the entrance to the market. This is it, sir. Where exactly would you like to go? The man scanned the area and then pointed toward a dimly lit alley. Just drop me off here. Arif frowned. Sir, this area isn't safe this late. Are you sure? A small smile played on the man's lips. I can take care of myself. With a slight shrug, Arif pulled over. The man reached into his coat pocket and took out a crisp stack of notes, far more than what was on the meter. Here, keep the change, he said, handing it over. Arif's eyes widened. This was more than just a generous tip. It was almost a week's worth of earnings. His fingers hovered over the cash, temptation creeping in. But something inside him resisted. He shook his head. I appreciate it, sir, but I can't take this much. The fare is only 450 rupees. Just pay me that. The man looked at him, intrigued. Most drivers would have snatched it without hesitation. Why refuse? Arif swallowed, choosing his words carefully. Sir, I work hard to earn an honest living. I believe money should come with dignity. If I didn't earn it, I don't deserve it. For the first time, the man's expression softened. He studied Arif as if seeing him in a new light. You're an interesting man, Arif. Arif stiffened. I never told you my name. The man chuckled. It's on your dashboard ID. Relieved, Arif gave a small laugh. Right? Of course. The man extended his hand. I'm Salman. Arif shook it firmly. Pleasure to meet you, sir. Salman nodded, then stepped out of the taxi, disappearing into the shadows of the alley. Arif sat for a moment, staring at the alleyway. There was something enigmatic about Salman, something that made Arif feel like this meeting wasn't just a coincidence. But he had work to do. With a sigh, he shifted the gear and pulled away, merging back into the main road. The night wore on, and Arif picked up a few more passengers, nothing out of the ordinary. A young couple heading to a late-night eatery, an office worker too exhausted to talk, and an elderly man who shared stories of his youth during the ride. Yet, Salman's presence lingered in his mind. Why would a rich man visit an old market at this hour? It wasn't his business, he reminded himself. He was just a taxi driver. Finally, as dawn neared, he parked his taxi outside his small apartment building. His body ached from the long shift, but the thought of seeing his family brought a smile to his face. He unlocked the door quietly, careful not to wake his children. His wife, Sadia, was still awake, stitching fabric under the dim glow of a table lamp. You're home late, she murmured, not looking up. Arif leaned down and kissed her forehead. Long night, but I made enough fares. She smiled tiredly. That's good. We need to pay for Amna's school books this month. Arif nodded, running a hand through his hair. We'll manage. Just as he was about to change out of his uniform, his phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. Frowning, he answered. Hello. A deep voice responded. Arif. It's me, Salman. Arif's heart skipped a beat. Sir? How did you get my number? I have my ways, Salman said, amusement in his tone. I need you to meet me. Right now. Arif glanced at the clock. Sir, it's almost morning. I just got home. It's important, Salman interrupted. Trust me. You won't regret it. Arif hesitated, looking at Sadia, who had now turned to face him, sensing something unusual. Where should I come? He finally asked. Salman gave him an address, one that made Arif's breath hitch. It was a 5-star hotel in the heart of the city. Why would a man like Salman be calling him there? His pulse quickened as he grabbed his keys and headed back out. Arif's hands gripped the steering wheel as he maneuvered through the near-empty roads. The city was bathed in a soft, golden hue, the first rays of the sun peeking over the horizon. His heart pounded with a mix of exhaustion and curiosity. Why had Salman called him to a 5-star hotel? Pulling into the grand driveway of the luxurious Royal Crest Hotel, Arif felt out of place. The gleaming marble floors, uniformed doormen, and expensive cars parked outside were a world apart from the dusty streets he usually navigated. As he stepped out of his taxi, a concierge approached him, giving him a once-over. Sir, taxi parking is not allowed here. Before Arif could respond, a voice interrupted. He's with me. Salman appeared at the entrance, now dressed in an elegant navy blue suit. He exuded power and confidence, a stark contrast to the simple overcoat he wore the previous night. The concierge instantly stepped aside. Come in, Arif, Salman said, motioning him inside. Hesitant but intrigued, Arif followed. The lobby was breathtaking. Chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, and soft classical music played in the background. Wealth surrounded him, making him feel like an outsider. They entered a private lounge, where a butler silently served them steaming cups of tea. Arif sat stiffly, still unsure why he was here. Salman finally spoke. "Do you know who I am, Arif?" Arif hesitated. "Only your name, sir, and that you seem to be a very wealthy man." Salman chuckled. "That's an understatement." He leaned forward. "I own multiple businesses across the country, hotels, factories, investment firms. But money has never impressed me. People do." Arif frowned slightly. "I don't understand." Salman sipped his tea, then looked directly into Arif's eyes. "Last night, you refused a large tip because you believed in dignity and honesty. In my world, those values are rare." Arif shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, I was just doing what felt right." Salman smiled. "And that's exactly why I want to make you an offer." Arif blinked. "An offer?" Salman placed a sleek envelope on the table. "I'm looking for a personal driver. Someone trustworthy, loyal, and principled. The pay will be more than 10 times what you earn now." Arif stared at the envelope. His mind raced. This was an opportunity of a lifetime. A secure job, a better future for his family, but something didn't sit right. "Why me?" Arif asked cautiously. Salman's expression turned serious. "Because I believe in surrounding myself with people I can trust. And I trust you." Silence stretched between them. Finally, Arif spoke. "Sir, this is overwhelming. Can I have some time to think?" Salman nodded. "Of course. Take a day. But trust me, Arif, this could change your life." Arif picked up the envelope, his fingers trembling slightly. "I'll let you know soon, sir." As he walked out of the Grand Hotel, the weight of the decision pressed on him. Arif drove home in silence, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. The envelope sat on the passenger seat, untouched. It contained details of the job offer, salary, benefits, expectations, but he couldn't bring himself to open it yet. Was this a dream? His small house came into view, nestled in a quiet, modest neighborhood. The sound of children playing echoed through the streets, and the scent of freshly baked roti wafted from nearby homes. As he stepped inside, his wife, Saira, greeted him with a tired but warm smile. "You're home early today," she noted, setting a cup of tea on the table. Arif sat down heavily, rubbing his temples. "Something happened, Saira, and I don't know what to do." She frowned. "What is it?" Arif took a deep breath and explained everything. The rich passenger, the rejected money, the hotel meeting, and finally, the unbelievable job offer. Saira listened intently, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she simply asked, "And what does your heart say?" Arif sighed. "I don't know. The money, it's life-changing. We could move to a better house, give the children a brighter future. But something feels strange. Why would a billionaire trust me after one meeting?" Saira nodded thoughtfully. "It does seem sudden. But maybe it's fate, Arif. Maybe this is the opportunity we've been waiting for." He exhaled. "Or maybe it's a trap. A world full of rich men and power games. I don't belong there." Saira reached for his hand. "You always say that our dignity is more valuable than money. But think about this. If a good, honest man like you enters that world, maybe you can make a difference." Her words lingered in his mind as he lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. The next morning, after dropping his kids at school, he parked his taxi at a quiet roadside and finally opened the envelope. Inside was a formal contract. Salary, 500,000 rupees per month. Luxury accommodation included. Medical benefits, insurance, and additional bonuses. It was more money than he had ever imagined earning in his lifetime. His heart pounded. Was he willing to leave behind the simplicity of his life? Could he trust Salman? Taking a deep breath, he reached for his phone and dialed the number Salman had given him. The phone rang once before Salman's voice answered. "Arif, I was hoping you'd call." Arif's grip tightened on the phone. "I've made my decision, sir." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line before Salman spoke again. "And what is your decision, Arif?" Arif took a deep breath. "I will accept your offer, but I have one condition." Salman chuckled. "A condition? Interesting. Go on." "I don't want to be treated like a servant or someone you're doing a favor for. If I'm going to work for you, it will be as an equal, with respect and dignity. Otherwise, I'd rather stay in my taxi." For a moment, Salman said nothing. Then, he laughed, a deep, genuine laugh. "That's exactly why I chose you, Arif. I respect men who value their principles. Welcome aboard." 2 weeks later, Arif stood outside an enormous glass building, his new workplace. Dressed in a crisp suit, he still felt like a taxi driver in disguise. Am I really supposed to be here? He wondered. But when he entered, the receptionist greeted him warmly. His new office had a view of the entire city. The nameplate on his desk read, Arif Ahmed, Logistics Manager, Salman Khan Enterprises. He was no longer just a driver. He was part of something bigger. At home, his family's life had transformed. Syra no longer had to worry about making ends meet. Their children had enrolled in a prestigious school. But despite the luxuries, Arif never forgot who he was. He still drove his taxi on weekends, refusing to let go of the life that had shaped him. One evening, as he parked his taxi outside their new apartment, he noticed a man in ragged clothes sitting on the pavement. He looked lost and defeated. Arif walked over and handed him a warm meal. The man looked up, eyes filled with gratitude. Why are you helping me? He asked. Arif smiled. Because not too long ago, I was sitting where you are now, and someone gave me a chance. The man's eyes widened. Who? Arif chuckled, thinking of Salman, a stranger who turned into a friend. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change a life. As he walked back to his taxi, Arif knew that wealth hadn't changed him. It had only given him the power to help others. And that was the real reward.